it's knowing those things, knowing where you are, knowing who you are in your nature, that you can then become very curious about what can you do with this? What can you do? How can you transform what you were given into something better, whatever that is. Hey, this is Damon Cart from Life Mastery Gym, bringing you cutting-edge processes and techniques to help you master your life so that you can become the person you want to be. So if that sounds good, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. We often hear this argument about nature versus nurture. So nature being whatever we're born with, however we are, and our natural instinctual tendencies. And then nurture being not just the things that we do for ourselves that feels good. A lot of times people think of nurture as that what you nurture is not just what you do that's nice to yourself. Nurture is also how you challenge yourself. So nature versus nurture, which is more powerful, which is more important, and why is it even important to understand this at all? I want to start this conversation by talking about a documentary that actually inspired this video and got me thinking about this. The name of the documentary is Three Identical Strangers. It came out in 2018. It's an incredible documentary. I'm going to try to talk about it without ruining the end of it so that you can go and see it. And it really explores this argument about nature versus nurture. It's about three, or rather a set of triplets who were separated at birth, raised in completely different homes. They didn't know each other, and they happened to meet each other later in life when they were adults. And one of the uncanny and bizarre things is that they had a lot of parallels in their lives. They liked the same type of women, they had the same kind of hairstyle, they smoked the same brand of cigarette. It was quite extraordinary. And this is uncomfortable for some people, depending on what side of the argument you find yourself on, because we don't oftentimes want to believe that our life is so predestined and controlled by our nature. Now, some people are all about this. Some people are all into, like, no, this is our nature defines us. Our nature tells us, or is basically guiding us and directing us. The problem with that is, and this is one of my pet peeves, is when people hold nature so high and sacred. Now, we've got to respect nature. We can't pretend like nature doesn't exist or that it doesn't matter. It definitely does. You push too hard against nature and it will push back. We see that in the environment. We see that in weather. So nature's a powerful thing, and I'm not saying that we should gloss over it and pretend like it doesn't matter. It does. But when we go too far into this, when we say, oh, it's natural, therefore it must be good, or everything's about nature, and nature is what we should aspire to, well, how committed are you to that argument really? Because if you are, then you shouldn't be using a toilet. You should be going out in the woods and using the woods as your bathroom. And modern medicine, that's not natural at all. What animal uses medicine? So there's all these things that are not natural that we benefit from greatly. So we don't want to go too far into the nature argument or think that nature solves everything and is the answer to all problems. It has a lot of answers, and I think we can look to nature to find solutions. But overall, it's okay to not go the way of nature and to go the way of, in this case, nurture. We're intelligent beings. We can innovate, we can create things, we can create technology, and not all of this is harmful. And it doesn't necessarily have to go against nature. So the argument then becomes, well, what controls our life more, what we nurture or our own nature? By the end of the documentary, after creating what looks like this argument to showing how powerful nature is in determining who you become, your tastes, your relationships, the documentary kind of flips to the other side and exposes the power of nurture in determining your life. So I'm not going to give away the end. That's about it. That's as far as I'm going to go. I've been pretty open and honest about how much I suffer in life. Not only that I have suffered, but that I continue to suffer, and that I continue to work through that suffering to be the happiest I can be, and to be the best version of myself. This is considered maybe death for a lot of people, a lot of teachers and coaches in personal development, that to be vulnerable and to expose myself that way, that I'm willing to admit that I've suffered depression. I continue to work through this. A lot of people would think that that's not a good idea to tell people that, at least in public. But I'm okay with that, and here's the reason why. If I didn't use nurture, if I didn't come to the understanding at a very early age that I am not stuck with my nature, I am not stuck with just the way things are. And I've told this story before, so if you've heard it, I apologize. But my father was very religious and pushed Catholicism on me a lot. And I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't like it. I didn't like going to church. And eventually I found myself not believing in it. But what he didn't push on me was personal development and self-improvement and positive thinking. And when he would go to, or when everyone would go to bed, I could hear him listening to cassettes in his bedroom. And I was curious about what the people were saying on those cassettes. And this was like old cassettes. The sound quality wasn't good, but I could hear it through my door and then through his door. And it turned out later that these were people like Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, and Tony Robbins. And what I was hearing over and over, the message I kept getting was, you're not stuck with who you are. You are not, your destiny is not set. That you can change things, that you can do something different. You can become better than what you are, whatever that means. And I heard that message enough times, and probably because it wasn't pushed on me, I wanted to know more about what those people were saying. And I really believe that helped determine this direction, me doing this. So if I only accepted what was natural, well, I would be probably very overweight right now. I'd probably be in very ill health. I would probably be very depressed and on antidepressants and probably various other mood stabilizers and whatever medications to make me feel better. I'm on no medication. I have a very healthy lifestyle. I'm strong, I'm fit. None of this stuff came naturally to me. In fact, it's hard for me to even imagine anything that I've done in my life that has come naturally to me. I had to challenge my body. I had to lift weights. I had to do yoga. I had to exercise to challenge my body, and this is what I would call nurture, into becoming healthier. As a result, I believe that affects my mood and that affects my mental health. It makes it much better. It stabilizes it. And then all of the practices that I have and all of the NLP that I've done and the coaching and the therapy, all of this is part of the nurture that has helped me become a very happy person and to become very successful in the way that I define success. That is the nurture, and that is the power of nurture. And I came face to face with this just yesterday because my son, who's 10 years old, I was having him do some homework because he has a lot of catching up to do. And he has some, I'll just say he has some special needs. I'm not going to go into all the specifics of it, but he's high functioning and he's very intelligent, and he kept crying. And usually, sure, he cries because I'm having him do something he doesn't want to do, but this was different. And I knew something was different, and he wanted to call his mother, and I let him call his mother, and he didn't want me to hear what he was telling her. And so I talked to him long enough that I finally got it out of him. He was feeling really bad about himself. And this was the first time that I recognized that how he was feeling is pretty much the same way that I've felt since I was a kid. And this got me to realize that my own depression, the things that I've struggled with, a lot of it probably is biological. A lot of it probably is hereditary because I've raised my son so much different than how my parents raised me. And he appears to be suffering from a lot of the same things that I suffer from. So of course, this really touched my heart, and I had a whole different perspective, a whole different understanding of what he was dealing with, So I sat down with him and I started helping him nurture this. Nurture, getting him to not focus on the bad stuff, but focus on what he wanted instead. So the nurture, I believe, can overcome the nature. Like I said, I would be weak muscles, overweight, I would be depressed, and I'm not the only one. Most people, to some extent, their nurture has made them better. Their nurture, how they've been nurtured, has helped them overcome some of the nature. And like I said, just because it's nature doesn't mean it's good. There are people who are naturally depressed. There are people who are naturally overweight. But the thing to understand here is that you're not stuck. There is a way out of this. You can make a decision. You can make choices to nurture out of you, or to nurture and overcome your nature. If you look at elite athletes, which you're probably looking at, I'm talking like the top 1% of athletes in the world. What you're looking at when you see these athletes is probably a combination of both nature and nurture. Because they're born gifted, they're born talented, and they've worked really hard. So some of us who weren't born with the natural talent, we can work as hard as we want, but when we come up against someone who has worked just as hard and they have the natural talent, we're just no match for it. But here's the beautiful thing about this, and you may be thinking, why are you telling me this? This doesn't sound good. You're basically saying that if I work really hard at something, I may never achieve what I want. Stop comparing yourself to other people. If I compared myself to Tony Robbins, someone who probably is both naturally talented and who's worked really hard, I'm going to feel terrible about myself. But that's not what this is about. What this is about is what were you given by nature? What were you given to work with? And what are the possibilities that you can do with that? What are the possibilities of what you can do to transform your nature? And what drives me, what gets me up every morning, and what makes me want to go for it is not, oh, someday I'm going to be like this other person. Someday I'm going to be as successful as this other person. No, I've done that before. That feels terrible when you try to aspire to be like someone else. No, what gets me up every morning is I have a unique nature. We all have a unique nature. We all were given something. What gets me up every morning, what makes me excited about life, is what are the possibilities of transforming that into something, I don't even know what it is. I want to see what I can do with this. It's more my curiosity than my ambition. Ambition is important, but what's really driving the ambition? There's got to be more to it than just like ambition in isolation. Your curiosity, tap into that curiosity. You were given this unique nature. And it might not, and it's definitely not all good. I was going to say it might not be all good, but it's definitely not all good. Not all of our nature is good, or how we would classify as good. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that it's not all serving you. If you're naturally depressed, naturally overweight, naturally high cholesterol, that ain't good. But it's knowing those things, knowing where you are, knowing who you are in your nature, that you can then become very curious about what can you do with this? What can you do? How can you transform what you were given into something better? Whatever that is, as long as you don't compare yourself to others. That's the big killer, is when you compare yourself to others. Don't compare yourself to others. And so you think about some of the people who were born without arms or without legs or with severe disabilities, and they go out and do these amazing things. Well, they can't compare themselves to other people. If there's no way, they can't grow arms and grow legs or whatever their disability is. No, they have to take what they were given and transform it. And that can be as unique as your individual nature. My job, my business, what I do is personal development and self-improvement, and I teach it and I coach it. Why should a person listen to me when I say things like I struggle and I suffer and I have to work through this, why would you come to learn anything from me when there's all these self-help gurus and all these personal development gurus who portray an image? We don't know what's really going on with them. And I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to say they're all really suffering. I don't know. But they definitely, there's a lot of them who portray an image that they don't struggle, they don't suffer. They may tell you a nice story about how they used to struggle, how they used to suffer, but the image they're portraying now is they don't struggle and they don't suffer. If a person was genetically gifted, say they're a bodybuilder, and they were just born big, they just were born with big muscles, and all they had to do was work out a little bit and boom, they're huge. Who would you rather go to get advice on how to make your muscles stronger and bigger? That person or someone else who is what we call a hard gainer, who struggled for a long time to find out what were the right eating habits, what were the right dieting habits, the right workout methods, until he or she discovered a whole new method to go from hard gainer to strong and big, if that's what you're into, and muscular. Who would you go to? The person who was born with a 200 IQ, or the person who added 100 points to their IQ? Say they had only had 100 points, but they found methods and ways to strengthen their intelligence to the point where they added 100 IQ points. Who would you go to? The person who was born into money, or the person who was born poor and created wealth, who amassed a huge amount of wealth based on a business they created? Most of the people who are gifted don't know, they can't tell you how they got it because they were just born that way. So how does that apply in your own life? Because you may be saying, well, I'm not naturally talented, I'm not naturally gifted. Even better, because when you take what you have and you transform it, you know what your values are, you have a vision, you set goals, and you go after it and you achieve it. Now you can tell not only a great story, but now you have the how. And people who are naturally talented and naturally gifted, they don't know how, because they were born that way. So you may never be as successful, as famous, as popular as people who are naturally talented or naturally gifted. But when you go from none of those things and you go through that transformation into becoming the success that you aspire to be, that says so much more about you. And now you can teach people this, which is so valuable, because if you did it, then there's going to be a lot of other people who want it too, and you become an inspiration to them, and you can become their teacher, their mentor, their coach, and that's what makes that so powerful. So it's not about wishing you were talented or wishing you weren't talented so you could go through this process. It's just about accepting who you are, accepting where you are, and transforming it into something better, transforming yourself into someone even better than who you are, based on your terms, not comparing yourself to anyone else. Check out my website, lifemasterygym.com. There you will find some free training. And of course, if you like this video, please click like right down here. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do that now and hit the bell so that you can be notified when there's new videos. Take care.